Whiteboard Wednesday on the way. My name's Kay Adams. Thank you for choosing us this morning. Peter Schrager and Nate Burleson are here. No Kyle Brandt in his place. Mike Garofolo, girl dad ×2. How is life with Vivian?
Oh, bleary-eyed. How do I look? Did I look clear?
You look great.
Because I'm faking it.
Oh, we're going to have a lot of fun today. I'm going to put you on the spot bright and early, like right now. It's time for the lead block. Let's do it. Mike G, we heard the news yesterday about Washington quarterback Dwayne Haskins. I'd love to know what went down, and I'd love to know the latest.
Well, Dwayne Haskins was caught on social media inside a strip club on Sunday night after the loss to Seattle. He then apologized yesterday on his Twitter account, which he then locked up for only those following him that they could now follow and see his tweets. But Haskins did apologize, and what's going to happen today is Ron Rivera is going to meet the media. I would anticipate that there will be no suspension based on the conversations I had yesterday. There's the apology. That there will be no suspension. Technically, they could for conduct detrimental to the team, but I think instead it's going to be a fine. Not that Rivera is going to announce it. He'll probably say, oh, that was handled in-house. It would be the second time that Haskins was fined for violating COVID protocols. He brought someone into the team hotel earlier this season, and this is what the NFL and NFLPA agreed to before this season, that if you engaged in reckless behavior that opened yourself or your teammates up to exposure to COVID-19, that you could be reprimanded for it. And not only is Dwayne Haskins opening up his teammates to COVID-19, also his head coach, who just underwent cancer treatments. So this is behavior that you do not expect from your quarterback, from a franchise quarterback, which Dwayne Haskins was supposed to be. So this is why I would expect some folks inside that locker room are going to be upset, because this team is trying to close out a divisional race here. And I would expect that those on the coaching staff and the front office are going to be very upset as they have conversations with Dwayne Haskins in the coming days.
He was filling in. He did say he wasn't throwing games away. I ask you quickly, Mike, any chance we see Alex Smith week 16?
Yeah, and they hoped that he would play last week, and the calf just didn't come along. This week, they were very hopeful that it would just be the one-game absence, that he would miss Seattle and be back for the game against Carolina. But, I mean, you just don't know with these calf things. They can be tricky, especially with a guy who's had a major leg injury in the past. So we'll see as the week goes on. But I do know that when I spoke to folks within the last couple of days in Washington, that they were hopeful that Alex Smith would be back, and that would handle any decision that they would have to make about Dwayne Haskins.
Thanks for the early work, Garofolo, on this. Schrags, they're in the middle of a playoff run. This is really disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, it's inexplicable. Yesterday, I come on this show, and I'm outraged that Juju Smith-Schuster is dancing on the logo of a football team before a game. Put that into contrast to this. Not only was it after a loss, it was in week 16, not a training camp or week 1. It's a second offense for Dwayne Haskins, who had a friend over the hotel the night before the Giants game and almost put the entire Washington organization at risk for COVID-19 by doing so against protocol. He's already been suspended or fined for it. He's already been benched this season. It's like, I don't know what to tell you if you don't understand the consequences of your actions here. The last point that Mike made was that Ron Rivera is going through cancer treatments right now, and you're going to put yourself at risk without a mask on, in a nightclub, or in a hotel suite, wherever that party was going on, and then you're going to walk back into the building and say, oh, hey, what's up? Let's go prepare for the game. I remember getting upset about the Giants being on a boat before the playoffs. They lost the game Sunday, and Haskins didn't play well, and he's celebrating in an unsavory manner with no mask on. So everyone could take a pound of flesh and everyone can criticize the kid. To me, I'm just confused and bewildered that at this stage in the season, with what everyone's going through with COVID-19, you could put those many people at risk.
Then, of course, we'll hopefully hear from him at some point. He did send those tweets that we just saw. Ron Rivera is set to talk to the media today. We'll hear all of that, and you can keep it here on NFL Network. When you say we're in the middle of this thing, you're right, Triggs. They could get to the playoffs and go deep. They're built that way. The NFC East, very much up for grabs. Washington, a game up on the Cowboys and Giants. All four teams have a path to the playoffs. So if we take a look at what's left on the schedule, all of these teams face each other in Week 17. It makes it very interesting. Ultimately, Nate, what do you think decides the NFC East?
Yeah, before I get to that, let me add in on Haskins. I mean, just like Peter and Garofolo are saying, I mean, putting your teammate at risk, putting your coach at risk, putting everybody within the organization at risk, that's at the top of the list of reasons why you shouldn't do things like that. I'm not going to tell you what to do in your downtime, but I will tell you this. If you have an opportunity to not only make a run into the playoffs, but establish yourself as a franchise quarterback, just push all of the chaotic ways of kicking it to the offseason. Do that when you're not coming back to the facility every day for practice and getting ready for a game. There's 2 weeks left. There's teams that have already booked vacations and shipped their cars. The Washington football team, you're not one of those squads. So Dwayne Haskins, just know, like, now is the time to be a little bit more tightened up. Now is the time to be a little bit more disciplined. Now is the time to prove not only to us talking about you, but the people that show up every day to play with you that you are the man for the job. And this is another decision that people are scratching their head on. But when it comes to the Washington football team, I think they have a chance, and it's obvious. I mean, they're the leaders in this division right now. Alex Smith, we'll see what happens with that calf, but for me, it's about that defensive line. That defensive line is ferocious, and we've been talking about them all year, and they really started to take shape. You know, they went on that 4-game win streak, and then they lost last week to the Seattle Seahawks, of course, but it's not like Seattle Seahawks blew them out in that game. What was it, 20-15? Russell Wilson still threw an interception. I mean, Dwayne Haskins takes care of the ball maybe one of those times. He doesn't throw a pick, maybe one of those interceptions that he pulls back off the board. They have a chance to win this, and we're talking 5 wins in a row for a team that nobody expected to do anything at the end of the year. If you're looking at the division, where they lead in the division, where they stand, if they get Alex Smith back at quarterback, this defensive line that has 40 sacks on the season, if they continue to play well, I see these guys not only getting to the playoffs, but they could flip the table over and shock somebody in that wild card round, that first round.
Yeah, when you have that front, it covers up a lot of other things, and that's a place that a lot of general managers and coaches, you want to be strong first on that defensive line, and they certainly are. Nate, when I look at this NFC East, I just can't help but think how pivotal the Eagles are over the last 2 weeks, because they've got 2 divisional games here. And more specifically, Jalen Hurts. I mean, I think Jalen Hurts is the answer to the question on the screen about what decides the NFC East, because this was a guy who, when Doug Peterson said, if I go to him, this was a couple of weeks ago, then I'm pretty much admitting the season's over. Well, now he's the guy that could save their season. Is this the one hope for them? And that's not a shot at Doug, by the way. That's just to say that Hurts has exceeded everybody's expectations, including those inside the building, on the coaching staff as well. And if the Eagles beat Dallas, that knocks out Dallas. If Washington loses and the Eagles win, well, now the Eagles are in contention and can perhaps take the division with a win in Week 17 over Washington. So of all the pieces that we're looking at right here, I just look at the Eagles and can't imagine that anybody's more pivotal than they are as to what's going to happen in this division right now.
That's crazy, Mike.
Well, welcome, Cowboys fans, back to the show. I know you haven't watched in the last 2 months. But welcome back, because suddenly the Cowboys are relevant, and it's going to come down to Week 16. They host the Eagles. They're the home team with a crowd in the stands with momentum of 2 straight wins. And then they might be going to play the lifeless Giants at MetLife in Week 17. If they handle their business and Washington loses one of those games, hello, Cowboys home playoff game. And how fitting in 2020 with how weird this year is and how upside down this year is. After we wrote off Dallas, that come Week 16, Andy Dalton and Tony Pollard might decide the NFC East. Yes, go back to any of our off-season shows in August, July, June. I would love to tally the amount of times we mention the names Andy Dalton and Tony Pollard in our countless NFC East conversations, but that's the year. It's crazy. And, you know, Nate, I mocked you earlier this season when you said that this division, which has just been filled with terrible football for the first 3 months of the season, was the most entertaining in the league. I said, come on, man, you don't really believe that. I'm looking at these 4 teams below us. They're all alive, and it might not be that fun or entertaining to watch them on a week-to-week basis, but it certainly is exciting.
Nate's just like
right about that, Striggs.
I'm kind of in on Dallas, Striggs. You've talked about Dallas more than anybody on our show for the past couple of weeks, just like They could do this. They could make it happen. Then Tony Pollard running effectively last week, racking up 132 yards. Dallas is back in the mix. To win the division, they need to win, just to lay it out for you Cowboys fans out there, both of their remaining games. And Washington then has to lose out, so they need a little help. Washington beat them twice, so they have the tiebreaker. For the Giants, guys, they win the NFC East if they end up tied with Washington because of their sweep of them this year. And then Washington can clinch this weekend, as we all know, of course, if they beat the Panthers. And if the Giants take an L, then Washington wins. And how fitting is it for Ron Rivera for that to happen a little over a year after the Panthers decided